This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Dads from the Crypt podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. I'm Alan Katz.
And I'm Gil Adler.
Today, we're going to do something we haven't had a chance to do in our podcast since season one, which is really just sit and shoot the shit. I think one of the joys of the first season that we haven't gotten to do in the second season is we would just sit and reminisce and try to remember all the things that happened, how we met, how we got Tales from the Crypt, the larger story of Tales from the Crypt, of doing it, the two movies, and of course Bordello of Blood. So many, there are so many little stories that we just haven't gotten around to, that have gotten not just short shrift, but no shrift whatsoever. When we first got Tales, it was, as we've said in the podcast, it was rarefied air. Now, you had breathed rarefied air already. You had, because but you'd been doing it longer than I had. You had made some feature films. You'd worked with Kirk Douglas. You'd worked with Brian De Palma. You'd worked with Irene Cara. Was that before or after, when she worked with you? Was that before or after Fame?
It was after Fame.
All right, so all right.
It was also after oh God, what's her name?
Okay.
Shit.
Come on.
She was married to the tennis player.
He was married to the tennis player.
I threw him out of the soundstage one day.
Oh my God! You threw him
on that movie called Certain Fury.
Oh gosh!
Tatum O'Neal.
Oh yes. Okay, yes. She was married to
that tennis player.
Oh my God! Look at the two.
Since he wasn't part of our movie or TV show, we'll just refer to him as the tennis player.
And I listened to the guy all the time when I watch tennis. And Johnny McEnroe.
John McEnroe.
Yeah, and he's a terrific commentator. I love listening to him.
Going back to the rarefied air.
Yeah, the rarefied air. Oh, that was so long ago. Yeah, it was so you had breathed it. Now, when we did Freddy's, there were guest stars, but that was so intensely cable TV.
Yeah,
there were no stars doing that. Robert Englund was the biggest star doing that show.
Yeah.
Although it's funny, the first episode that we shot of Freddy's Nightmares was one that you and I wrote. It was Welcome to Springfield. Okay. Welcome to that place. And the lead actress was Mariska Hargitay.
Right.
And she found pay dirt. She found that Dick Wolf situation, and she was very, very smart. She camped out there, and my God,
23 years later, she's a very wealthy lady and continuing to perform on the show.
Yeah. Oh no, she found a niche in which she was happy and comfortable.
Yeah.
And hey, I bet she's happy.
She was delightful to work with, even way back then.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. And it's funny. At the time that we shot that, I lived in West Hollywood. Remember that place, that little place with the swimming pool?
On Slocum, Sycamore.
Yeah. Oh my God, that house. Oh, it was such a strange block because, all right, there was Santa Monica Boulevard and Sycamore, and at night there was
wild.
Yeah, the business, but whatever the business was, it was closed, and usually there were hookers who would stand on that corner. We had this weird little cute little house in the middle of this block, set back from the street and surrounded by a fence. And in front of the fence, right between the street and the fence, there was a 3-4 car parking lot
Mm-hmm.
exclusively for the house. And so really, if you didn't know to look behind the gate, as kind of wild as that block could be, it was a bit of an oasis there. We had a swimming pool. We had and this really cool little house. It's been since knocked down and turned into some really hideous condos, but such as it
Has
is.
it really? I've never been back there since.
Yeah.
I loved working there. You know, I would come in, get a welcome from
yeah.
Sophie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, we were away from the rest of the world, and we had our little cocoon, and it was fantastic.
The reason that I brought that house up is because right up the street at the corner of Sycamore and Fountain, Mickey Hargitay had his business. He's in the plants.
Right, that's right.
He's in the plant business, and his business was a block away from where I lived. And so it was just, you know, this town, when you work in this town, it's just the weirdest things happen. And it just, to me, it was strange that, okay, here was my first produced credit was this show. And the lead actress, her dad his place was just up the street from me.
I wasn't so lucky. I didn't have anyone like that living up the block from me.
But Mariska was a terrific actress, but not a big star. But all right, so the Freddy's years, my things that we wrote, we weren't getting, we were still TV,
right?
And then suddenly, Tales, and
big time.
Right off the bat. And the first order of business, as soon as we got Tales, was that the first episode was going to be directed by Michael J. Fox.
Yep.
One of the things that we learned quickly, right in that first season, was that the executive producers, as they looked at the third season, especially because they figured that was going to be the last season of Tales from the Crypt, they had larded it up with favors, and the directing slots were prime. Everyone was fighting for those directing slots, and Bob had, I think he had promised one to Michael. Dick Donner had promised one to Michael Thau.
Right.
I think there might have been one or two other promises that were being fulfilled. And we'll talk about that a little bit, how that worked out for us.
Yeah.
You mostly because really that you became the day school for guys learning, for people learning how to direct. My first really taste of superstardom was when we did our first episode. And Michael J. Fox was going to direct it. He also played a small part in it, but I've never confessed this to anyone because I've always prided myself on not in any way, shape, or form being a star fucker, and I'm not. I don't really. To me, I don't really care about meeting people. It's working with people. To me, is the interesting thing. But this was the first time I had worked with someone of a pay grade a gazillion miles beyond mine. And the first thing that I had to do was I had to go meet with, because I was the story editor. And so I was responsible for making all the scripts ready for production. And of course, that involved working with the director. So the first episode we were going to produce was going to be directed by Michael. And so I had to go to where Michael was living at that time to go over the script with him. And he and his family were living at a hotel just at the westernmost end of Sunset Strip, one of those hotels. It wasn't the Chateau Marmont, but another hotel that had bungalows.
Yeah.
And Michael and family and Tracy were in a bungalow, and I remember, looking at my wardrobe to think, God, have I dressed for the occasion? Have I, really, really stupid, stupid things. And Michael was lovely, of course. And, it was, his kids were there, and I met Tracy, and she was lovely. And the next thing you know, you're getting down to work, and all of the stuff that you're thinking, that all goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all just people really collaborating together on this creative endeavor.
When it works best, that's how it works.
And that was incredibly instructive. Well, Michael was a student of the Bob Zemeckis School.
Yeah.
As are we. And so we all understood, that when you break out the project, well, nothing else matters.
And for me, as him as our director.
Yeah.
So I would go to him, as I did to Tom Hanks, and say, look, you guys are actors, acting. I'm not going to try to tell you anything about how to get a performance out of somebody, but I don't know if you're comfortable with the camera, or you're comfortable with visual effects or makeup effects, or the size of the lens. But I can help you with that. Alan can help you with that, and we have professional people throughout our crew that are very competent in all those areas. So any area that you feel vulnerable, just tell us, and we'll make sure it's covered properly, and nobody will know except us. So we try to keep it very, very fluid and very, very honest and very, very accommodating to getting the best out of their best work out of them.
Occasionally it didn't work out so good for us, those favors. Now I don't mean to cast aspersions. I don't know what Mike Thal is doing these days. I expect he's very good at whatever he's doing. At that particular time, I don't think he was quite prepared to step onto a film or TV set, as its director. And I think if we put it that way, I think we're being genuine. He was absolutely unprepared. And, the problem with walking onto a film set when I say unprepared, I don't mean just unprepared with your shot list. I mean, unprepared emotionally.
Yeah.
It's a bit, it's not unlike when you are trying to deal with a dog, for instance. If the dog senses that you're the beta and it's the alpha, it will treat you that way. And a film crew is exactly the same way. And if you're going to be the alpha, they will follow you. If you're going to be the beta, they're bitching and moaning about you already.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to question everything you do. They're going to take 3 times as long to get it done because they don't trust you.
Well, later on, I think, in the season, we ought to talk about first-time directors and working with first-time directors.
Yeah.
What's different about that than working with somebody that's even made just one movie? Because that's a whole conversation in and of itself. And that might help some of our younger people who aspire to be filmmakers. Have
a vision. Even if you're not quite sure how to articulate the vision, or how to use the vocabulary or the equipment that we have to articulate the vision in your head. Well, that's why you've got a DP. That's why you've got a production designer. These people, that's their job. They will help you take it from the stuff you can't quite put a name to in your brain and make it real.
Yeah. We were very fortunate with people like Michael and with Tom, because they felt comfortable in their skin, and they knew what they knew, but equally they knew what they didn't know.
Yeah.
They weren't afraid, and they weren't afraid to say, I don't know that. How, can you guys tell me a little bit more about that? And bang, we would just jump to it. And it was delightful.
It makes all the difference in the world, because working with confident people.
Yeah.
And look, confident people are confident in what they don't know.
Right.
And, hey, man, I know I don't know this. I will go to expertise, and that way, I will decrease my chances of on my head. That was the beauty of that particular crew. I mean, most crews are filled with competent, good people, but man, it was, because we were an anthology, there was never anything to fall back on.
Well, every 5 days, the world changed. The sets changed, the props changed, the actors changed, the story changed. Nothing was reusable.
Everything changed.
So every 5 days, bang, we were on a whole new world.
uh, as instructive lessons go. Here's one that comes to mind. Another, excuse me, another first that we experienced on that first season of Crypt. The first episode that we wrote that went before the cameras was the one with Whoopi.
Yeah.
Dead Weight.
Right. That's the one Toby Hooper directed.
Yeah, and funny, there are a couple of stories that we can tell about that one, that episode. First of all, working with Whoopi was such a delight. I think I might have told this story, but I'll tell it again. One of my strongest memories of Whoopi doing Tales. She was a huge comic book fan and a big fan of the old DC comics. And just after I think the very first day she started working, she came into our offices there at the A1 Globe Pasta Factory, and she wanted to know if we had copies of the comic books. And of course, we had stacks of them in our boardroom where we held our production meetings. Yeah, we had the whole collection there, everything. And we said, sure, we'll bring them to your trailer. And she said, no, it's okay. I'll have them. I'm here. I'll have them here. And so we said, okay, we'll put them in the boardroom. She said, no, I don't want to sit in the boardroom. I don't want to sit in the room by myself. I'll sit right here, standing in the hallway. I'm not here. Yeah, just get me a chair. So we got Whoopi a chair and a stack of the hardbound comic books, and she sat there. And this was the week after she had just won the Academy Award for Ghost. And so the most recent winner, the Academy Award winner for Best Supporting Actress, Whoopi Goldberg, sat there in our corridor on a chair reading Tales from the Crypt comic books as people went back and forth. Some of them going, wait a minute, is that Whoopi Goldberg?
Right.
It was.
But that's kind of why she won the Academy Award, because she goes that extra mile, and does that extra research, and to learn more about what that show is about and what that character is about.
Yeah. She was so much fun to work with. The first shot, the opening shot of the episode, the title sequence shot, Toby had designed a terrific oneer. Do you remember this?
I do.
All right. And it started, the whole setting is tropical. And the very first scene, there's two people having sex. It's Red, the character played by James Remar, and Vanity. I forget the name of her character. But she's the mistress of the plantation owner, John Rhys Davies, who has this pearl that the James Remar's character, Red, he covets. All right. So the shot that Toby had imagined, it started out, there was a mosquito netting over the bed. And it starts out on the mosquito netting, and he drifts down. And at a certain point, Toby would say, James. And James would sit up into the shot. Oh, no, it was Vanity, right? It was Vanity. She's on top. Vanity. And Vanity sits up into the shot, and she's riding James. And so they're having sex. And as it slowly moves down, at some point, he was going to say, and orgasm. And she was going to pretend to orgasm and come and then lie down on his chest. And then they were going to begin some dialogue. And at a certain point, he gets out of bed and exits the shot, and that's it. That was the whole thing. It was a great shot. Great shot. And finally, we go to do it. And, various problems. Hey, it's a wonder. It's complicated. Just failing. I don't know how many shots we got to when suddenly they went to you and said, maybe we should think about breaking this up. Someone's got to break this to Toby that this wonder is not going to work anymore. We must have had 10, 11 takes.
Yeah. And you have to understand, the audience has to understand, in Tales from the Crypt, we would do a long take. A big take would be 4 or 5 times, and then you print 1 or 2, and then you move on. We never did 20, 10, even 8 was a lot. We would just do 4 or 5, move on.
Let's stop to remember when, God, because we were shooting film.
Yeah.
And that was a whole other thing. These days you can shoot as much as you like. It's just memory. But back then, all right, it was film stock. And then you weren't going to print all of it because you weren't going to give all of it to the director, to the editor. You were only going to print some of it. So the rest of it was simply going to get thrown out.
And that's wasted money.
Oh yeah. So the fact of doing all these takes, it was the day was beginning to where we got to make the day. We can't die here on this one on
Yeah.
this one shot. And so he said, just one more. And all right. So now we're all standing around the monitor because now, all right, now time is money, and yeah, it's now or never. And everyone's ready, and Toby yells, "All right, action!" And we're on the mosquito netting, and they're beginning to have sex, and we move down, and he says, "Vanity," and Vanity sits up into the shot. It's perfect, and she's riding him. Oh, she looks fantastic, and he says, "And come!" And Vanity has her fake orgasm, and she comes, and she finally settles onto James Remar's chest, and it's great. The shot is perfect. And they do their dialogue, and it's great. It's perfect. They're just nailing these lines, pop. And finally, James Remar goes to get out of the bed, and as he slips out of bed, his erect penis pops up into the bottom of the shot, and he walks out. Now, we all saw it. We all saw his erect penis pop up into the bottom of the shot, but we didn't say anything. We didn't.
Well, that's what we call good acting. Really.
Oh my God. I mean, I think we all kind of thought, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. And when Toby finally called cut, we all go, look, I didn't see that. He didn't see that. But we all saw it. And finally get to the end, and Toby yells, cut. And he turns to look at us like, that was it. And we all said, well, Toby, we're not sure, but we think we saw it. And of course, yes, his penis was in the bottom of the shot. And he was crushed because that was his last shot. And we said, all right, we gave him one more, and he got it.
He did. But that affected us. I think that might have been the day. I'm not sure. When, we broke for lunch, and we used to always have lunch with the director. And Toby wasn't a great friend of mine then. I think it was the first time we've ever really worked together. He since then became a very close friend of mine until he passed away. But
did he not do any Freddy's Nightmares?
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay.
I think he did. And anyway, so he came to me at lunch, and he sits down. I go, "Hey, how you doing?" And he goes, "I screwed up, Gil. I don't know what to say to you. I said, calm down. We can fix anything. What happened?" Well, we have another half a day. I have 9 shots. I have 12 shots. There's no way I can get 12 shots. I don't know what to do. We don't have the time. I said, okay. So tell me exactly where you are. Because I think we were upstairs rewriting or doing something else.
Yeah.
They were shooting. And I said, okay, tell me. And he told me, and I said, okay. So after lunch, you're going to go back onto the set, and you're going to continue shooting in the direction that you're currently shooting in. So there's no change of the lights, except for tweaks. And then I'm going to go upstairs and talk to Alan, and we're going to come up with a plan. And I'm going to come down in about 15 to 20 minutes, and we're going to show you the plan. I might even have an idea for shots, maybe. But you'll tell me what you think. If you like it, then you'll do it. And if you like the shots, use them. If you don't like them, don't use them. Use some of them. I don't care. But it'll be a plan to get us out of the day. And I think it'll be a plan that will also serve the integrity of the episode. And if you don't like what we say, then I'm going to go back upstairs, and we're going to come up with another plan. So just take it easy. Go back to shooting. I'll see you in 20 minutes. And we went upstairs, and we came up with a plan. We came down to see him. I said, Toby, I can do this afternoon in 9 shots or 8, whatever, and it makes the day. And I said, but there's also a change in the script.
Yeah.
And the change in the script is, that other set next door we were going to go into where he hides the black pearl? He goes, yeah. I go, we're not going into that set. We're going to stay in this set. And I'm not mad at you, because we built it, and we painted it, and we lit it. We spent a lot of money on it. We're not going to use it. We'll use it on some other episode, so that's not a problem. And you're going to stay in this set. And he goes, but Gil, where are we going to hide the black pearl? And I said, please, let me finish. And I said to him, you ready? Just listen to the whole thing before you hate it.
Yeah.
He swallows it. He goes, what? I said, he swallows it. And the way we're going to reveal it is on insert day, where we have a lot of inserts to do. We're going to have a shot. I think it's medium shot. I think it's a slow push in on the cadaver.
Yep.
We're going to see a knife and a hand come into frame. Squishy, squishy, squishy. Opens up the cavity. A hand is going to come in and pull out the pearl to camera. And that's how we're going to do it. And I'm just watching Toby react, figuring he's going to say to me, "That's the worst shit I've heard in my life." And he goes, but wait a minute. That's fantastic. That's better than what we had before. Before we just had him going into another room and finding the pearl.
Yeah.
Believe nobody will believe this. This is fantastic. He's, let me see that shot list. And we saw this. He took a look at the shot list, and I said, look, this is a way of doing it. I'm not telling you have to do it this way. If you want to, great. If you want to change it, great. But this gets us out of the day economically.
I had totally forgotten that really that it was because we had so much trouble getting that first shot that it really that was what gave us the better
story. Yeah. And that's how we worked on a lot of the scripts with a lot of the directors in that very fashion, because it wasn't about, okay, a lot of producers come out and say, listen, you got a half a day to get the show. I don't care how you do it. I'm closing you down in 6 hours. Well, that doesn't, you and I looked at it and said, that doesn't help anybody. It puts more pressure on the director. It doesn't help us get a good show. So why would anybody do that? Why don't we figure out a way to suggest a way out for them that they can accept or reject, and let them know that they can accept and reject it, and that we'll just keep working on it. And that seemed to work really, really well with our show, and really on the movies that I made subsequent to that.
I've got one more memory from Dead Weight. And again, it was the first time. So it was the first time that we were, episode that we had written. And yes, I always got to sit at the front table, the production table, but this was now as co-writer. And so this was, a big moment inside my head. I'm thinking, look at you.
And rightfully so.
Look at you.
Yeah.
But there was a very harsh lesson about to come. Now, I have learned subsequently that really every script needs to have two different versions. And one is the sales version, the pretty version that is for the executives. It's the pretty thing that you're going to sell. The other version is a technical document that is the blueprint for all the department heads and how they're going to get their work done. And it really needs to be a very direct document filled with specific information that these people can use to get their work done.
Yeah.
All right. So with that in mind, we begin to do the production meeting. Our production manager was the wonderful F.A. Miller, and F.A. did not suffer fools at all.
F.A. should also be a topic for an entire hour, because he was such a special man.
God, yes. We'll get all the people in who knew and worked with F.A. And that will be, yes.
Yeah.
So F.A. begins to read the very first line of the script, because there's a production issue that we've bumped into. And it says, it's hot. It's so hot, even the palm trees are sweating. And so begins a 10, 12-minute conversation, how to make it look like the palm trees are sweating. I am now sitting there at the head macher table, one of the head machers, thinking, no, it's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor. I didn't really mean. And so finally I put up my hand and I said, F.A., excuse me. I did not mean that the palm trees were literally sweating. It was just a metaphor. And
I'm actually doing the sweating for the palm trees right now.
and F.A., in that puckish way he had, looked at me, took a breath, and said, moving on. I learned such an important lesson that day at that production meeting, sitting at the production table. Oh gosh, yes, yes, yes. When it comes time to actually hand the script to the people who have to do the work, throw out all the poetry. They don't need it.
Yeah.
It
Good
will only
advice.
get in everyone's way.
Good advice.
Uh, Working at the A1 Globe was well, it was an interesting place to work, but when we got there, it's no longer it's not a pasta warehouse. It's not a production facility. I think it's stores now. It was torn down, but
Yeah, I think there's an Albertsons and there's another
yeah,
department
yeah,
store there. It's quite amazing what's there now. Then it was just a warehouse on the top of a ramp
right.
that we would drive up, and you would park there and go into the facilities. And
There were a few problems.
more than a few. One of them, which was a very serious issue,
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah,
before we got there. I think a week or two before we got there, an electrician was electrocuted
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
died. And we sort of were taking over the show just as this was happening, and we were being told about this.
Yeah, it
Well,
was it was the back. There was a huge panel, electric panel at the back.
yeah,
He had been servicing it something, and it
yeah,
had just thrown a
an arc,
yeah. Wow.
and just took him totally out.
Mm.
I don't even think he ever felt what happened. But here we're coming into this doing the show, and one of the first things we hear is this happened, and I'm like, what? How could that happen? I mean, how could anyone? So when I think about Rust and what happened last year with the gunshot and this
Yeah,
the photography dying, I
yeah.
was thinking back to what we did, and we learned at a very, very early on how important it was to be totally, totally transparent with the safety and to make sure that everybody understood what their jobs were and how to do it.
What was your when you saw this terrible tragedy had happened on a film set, and
Yeah,
I feel the same way about the one where the train. There were
yeah, yeah,
the people. My
yeah,
first thought was, what the fuck are you all doing?
yeah,
How as if the producer head went, how could you endanger? How could you
right,
endanger your family like that? Because ultimately, you're the one who put them out there.
right. I mean, there are some things more important than making a movie or a TV show. I know our audience is going to have a hard time believing that, but there is. And so, you and I did a lot of full body burns in
Yeah.
Freddy's Nightmares and in Tales from the Crypt. And with full body burns in those days, the gel allowed you, I think, 26 seconds before, the gel was done and flesh was going to burn. So we would be rehearsing it ad nausea. You and I think we're both on the set. Certainly, I know one of us was on the set, but probably both of us. Each time we did the full body burn, and I would have conversations ad nausea with the special effects guys.
You were
And the stunt
meticulous. I
guys.
mean, this was you were rightfully obsessed, and
Yeah.
you made sure that that the first announced everything, that there was that everyone understood exactly what the protocol and the process was going to be.
I mean, I would even have problems with some of our stunt guys because they would say, "You're jinxing this, Gil. I don't need an ambulance outside. I don't need a big bucket of ice, like a big galvanized can of a garbage can full of ice, 10 feet away." And I would sometimes lie to them and say, "Okay, no, we don't need an ambulance." And of course, I had the ambulance another half a block or another behind another car. But to the good news is no one ever suffered any burns, even minor ones,
Hmm.
because we were so nuts about it.
Yeah.
And I think today, as I've learned over the years, and as you do more things that are dangerous, you just have to make sure and be the bottom line, be the responsible party that you need to know what's going to happen. You need to make sure it's safe. And it doesn't matter what other people say to you. It doesn't matter if they tell you, "Oh, no, I got that covered." I don't believe you got that covered. I don't give a shit if you got it covered.
Hmm.
Tell it to me again how you have it covered, and then show me how you have it covered. So anytime we would do guns, we were always looking inside
Oh,
the guns. We were always shooting the guns at a blank space before they would give them to the actor. If we did body burns, the same thing. We would make sure we would rehearse. I remember checking up a guy's nostrils to look to see that that there was enough gel up there, because one of the first things that'll happen is it'll go right up your
They'll
nose.
inhale. Right, right, right.
So, today, I don't know if people have forgotten about that or not, but that's one of the, I don't know how I would feel or how we would feel if anyone got seriously injured on a movie set or a TV set that was ours.
Oh,
I don't know if I could live with that.
no, 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 completely it's a movie.
Yeah.
We're just
That's
telling a
why
story here.
that's why when I see things today happening like what we were just referring to, I have a great deal of difficulty understanding how that could happen. Who somebody wasn't doing their job.
How was there live ammo anywhere near that set?
Yeah.
1 + 1 = 2.
How did
What?
it get in, and how did it get into that gun? You know. Anyway, we took over the show, and that's the first thing we were confronted with, that this guy was killed from electrocution.
Yeah.
I think it had a great impact on the two of us of how we then proceeded with any kind of stunt, with any kind of dangerous event. And I think to some degree, I think it served us well to learn that lesson so early on.
Uh, have over the course of your career, what's the biggest stunt, or what's the most dangerous stunt that you oversaw?
I'm sure it's something on Valkyrie with Tom Cruise, because he wouldn't listen to anybody.
Oh, tell.
I think it's him hanging on the side of the plane, but I'm not.
Okay. For instance, I've never had the pleasure of working with the man. What is that like exactly?
It's very difficult. He's a nice fella.
Yeah.
He's a very hardworking man.
Yeah.
But he takes risks where, you as a producer, you as an insurance company, you as a studio, you as a backer would not want to have that risk taken. And yet he'll just do it, and he'll do it and he won't tell you. He'll arrange to do something. So
on Valkyrie, what?
we had these old ancient planes that we rented for a lot of money for a very short period of time. And on the Yonker, which is one of the bigger planes, on one of the first days of shooting, he just decided to take it for a ride. After we were shooting inside the plane up in the air, and they got the shots, I said, "Okay, come on, bring it down."
Fly the plane?
Yeah, because he's a pilot, so he wanted to fly it. And I was like, and so when he flew over me, he wiggled the wings to let me know, he knew that I was watching.
Oh geez. Oh geez. Oh geez. Oh geez. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, can't you just go back to jumping on Oprah's couch, dude?
I mean, it gave me pause and made me think, he's playing Stauffenberg. Maybe I could just deliver him to the Nazis myself. But that's another movie.
Surely. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Uh, as we were talking earlier, we were remembering we accomplished what we accomplished on that first season of Crypt with $1 million deficit. We'll remind everyone that one was the reason that you got hired, and then because you got hired and I got hired, is because the second season of Tales from the Crypt, the production went $1 million cash over budget.
And the show was canceled. And the show was canceled.
Yeah. And the executive producers had not set up the show like a TV show, which is, most no TV show can get made for just the license fee, for just its immediate first time broadcast payback. You couldn't make the show for that. And so you get what's called a deficit partner, at least in the old days. Yeah, there's a deficit partner, and they were going to cover what it really costs to make the show. And the partners never had a deficit partner to cover, the real cost of the show. And so, yeah, HBO covered the costs up until a certain point, and that suddenly they turn around and say to the executive producers, "Oh, by the way, get out your checkbooks, boys. You owe us $1 million. That's, for overages."
Right.
And the first thing that they did was they canceled the wrap party.
Right. Which is so important because it's so expensive.
Surely it was.
I mean, but from the $1 million, there's probably like, $3,000 that they got. Okay, now you're only down 997,000.
Right, but they canceled the rap party. They fired the producer and most of the people.
Yeah,
Bill Teitler.
yeah, yeah.
And they hired you. There were a couple of people left over. There was an accountant I remember, named Rob. I have a memory. Rob had extended his time and extended his time and extended his time, and I think you were so on to him. And you mentioned that to Joel, that Rob really had finished everything that he needed to button down weeks before. And so we were sitting in Joel's office at Warner Brothers before he got Dick's office, but he gets Rob, the accountant, on the phone, and sitting there watching Joel slowly allow someone to hang themselves. and Rob, he goes, so Rob, you got this project, and you had just fed Joel this information. So Rob, you got to work on this. Yeah, you finished this project now. You think you need a couple more weeks on this? Yeah, I think I might need a couple more weeks on that. Yeah. Oh, okay, a couple more weeks. No, okay. How about this project? A couple more weeks on that? Well, yeah, maybe a couple of weeks. Oh, okay, a couple of weeks on that. And watching him hang himself, and then Joel turned around and it was one of those things. Oh, you're so glad you are not the one being held up on the end of a pin and just destroyed. It was the first time I'd ever watched anyone, Joel. I'd never watched anyone do that to anyone else before in my entire life.
Yeah, but something, that guy deserved it. I mean,
oh my God, yes,
he was stringing them along.
Oh my God, yes,
taking his paycheck and not doing any work.
Oh yes, oh I'm not, but this was all part of the education of Miss Jean Brody here.
Yeah.
Among the other stories that we hadn't told yet, I will drop two words and just see how you react. Uli Edel.
Who, oddly enough, to this day, is somewhat of a friend of mine. I mean, I hear from him. He lives in Germany now. Yeah. And every once in a while, I'll get an email or a phone call from Uli Edel. However, I don't know how or why that's happened.
Yeah.
When he was doing Tales from the Crypt.
The episode is called Came the Dawn. It wasn't a terribly memorable comic, although the script was written by our friend Ron Finley. Ron had the same age as we did, and Ron was a lovely writer. He did a couple of good episodes. And we got Uli Edel to direct it, Brooke Shields, Perry King, Michael J. Pollard, and your cousin, Valerie Wildman.
Valerie Wildman. And, as we said earlier, we usually do like 3 or 4 or 5 takes. Yeah. And we print 1, or maybe we print 2, and we move on.
Yeah.
And this was a day we were working in the office. They were shooting in Malibu. And we had
a restaurant. They were shooting at a restaurant at
Saddleback Lodge, Saddle Peak Lodge.
Yeah, the Saddle Peak Lodge, which is a great restaurant in the hills above everything.
Yeah.
It's, above really Malibu. It looks like a big hunting lodge.
Right. And so all of a sudden the phone rings, you and I are working, and it's my cousin Valerie. And she said,
cousin Val.
Yeah. I go, what's the matter? What are you calling me? What happened? She said, well, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but we're shooting with Uli, and we're still on the first shot, and he's on take 27. And I went, what?
And Valerie was in that scene. It was a restaurant scene, and she was in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was saying, I don't know what else to do differently. He just says, do it again. So I said, okay, get the first
27. Take 27.
Get the first AD. I want to talk to the first AD. Get him on the phone right now. Stop everything. And the first AD came on, and I yelled at him. And then he was referring, well, I can't stop him. And I said, okay, stop everything. Stop shooting. Get Uli on the phone with me. And Uli got on the phone. And I said, are you out of your mind? What are you trying to do? Kill me? You're never going to finish your day. You're never going to even finish this scene. How could you be on take 27? Well, I don't have it yet. I said, well, let me help you. You have it. Okay. You have it. And I'm coming down right now, and you better be on the next scene. And I stormed out, hung up the phone, got in the car.
Now the trip from where we were, like in Simi Valley, out to where the Saddle Peak Lodge was a half hour itself.
Yeah. Half hour.
So there's another 30 minutes of filmmaking is happening while you're in transit.
Right. And I get there and he's still shooting. He's on take 35. So I
Hey,
shut him down.
35.
I just shut it down. I said, you're finished. You're finished. You're going on to the next scene. And, I was ready to kill him. And I said, do I have to sit here for the rest of the day and adjudicate what things you're going to print and what things you're not going to print and call you on it when you take 4 or 5? And we had a chat. I stayed for lunch. I had another chat with him over lunch. And I just said to him, I can't afford to stay here. I can't afford to have you take more than 4 or 5 takes. You need to tell me right now you're going to do that, or I'm going to fire you right now and I'll take over the show. And he said, okay, I'll do it. Okay. And I said to the AD,
you put it that way,
you call me every time you finish a shot, you call me. I want to hear something. How many takes did we do? How many did we print?
it was like you were putting an ankle bracelet on him.
Yeah. And that's how we got through that episode.
Yeah. What got into his head? He suddenly thought he was Kubrick.
I don't know what got into his head. I guess he figured it's Tales from the Crypt. No one's going to stop him. They were in deficit $1 million last year. They must be going into deficit for $2 million this year.
And the scene that he was shooting, it was not a key scene.
No, it was 2 people sitting in a restaurant eating.
The dialogue scene.
Yeah.
What more could you possibly want?
Right.
You're gonna end up. It's gonna be pop coverage anyway. What the hell are you doing?
I think maybe he liked the food that we had, the prop food, and every time he went over there, he took a nibble.
That must be it.
It must be it.
Gosh, this was fun.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I mean, these are sort of stories out of our memories that we don't really think about very often, but all of a sudden Alan will say something or I'll say something and it'll trigger a reaction from him or from me. And we'll just start riffing about,
oh my God,
some of the fun and some of the silly stuff that happened along the way. And it may not have been silly or fun at the time.
No, in some cases, it absolutely, the last thing it was, well, the Uli Adele thing we can laugh at now, but that was maddening. It was maddening. It's funny. We were just remembering, when Ron wrote the script, I'm just remembering this, he intended the casting that we ended up casting Brooke Shields to play the female lead, but he wrote it having a buxom woman in mind. And so he wrote, as she takes off her shirt at one point, I think there was a sex scene, he describes her bra as being industrial strength because her breasts were going to be industrial size large, I guess was the intention. And so this was I was talking about the palm tree sweating. This was the palm tree sweating. This was the industrial size, the industrial strength bra was because of the anticipation of a different kind of casting. But we cast Brooke Shields, and Brooke Shields is a very pretty, petite in that way woman. She's not a large breasted woman. And so when we designed an industrial strength bra for her, when she took off her clothing before this sex scene, it didn't make the sex scene work because it was not a sexy bra. It was industrial strength on a woman who didn't really have much in the way of breasts. And so it was an odd choice. But again, it was one of those things where we never caught that. And
all I can say is it's a shame we didn't have those sweating palm trees. That would have helped us out, I think.
Yes, it was something else to look at other than that industrial strength bra.
Right.
And on that note, hey, it's always fun just to shoot the shit with you, man.
Likewise. Brings back those great memories that we had when we were working together day in and day out, 14, 16 hours a day.
Oh, man. Hey, those were the days.
Yeah.
And let's bring them back.
Should we say anything about the podcast on December 17th?
Oh, yeah. Hey, while before we completely sign off, on December 17th, that's right. We're going to do a script reading for charity.
For the Motion Picture Home in Woodland Hills. And
great charity. Yeah.
Yeah. And your admission is a contribution. We're going to have a website. We'll have it. And the money will go directly to the Motion Picture Home. It's not going to filter through us. 100% of the money goes to the Motion Picture Home.
Right.
And whatever you can afford to give. I hope some of you can afford, to give a little bit more generously. But in the spirit of the holidays and Christmas, we wanted to use our podcast to do something that might help people less fortunate than us,
Yes.
both on both sides of this, you guys listening and us talking. And the Motion Picture Home, we know, does an incredible job of helping people who are somehow related to the film industry, medical, housing. It just goes on and on. So we're going to do it on the 17th. I think it's at noon, right, Alan?
It is at noon Pacific time.
Yeah. And so think about that, and maybe try to take a look at your piggy banks and think about how much money you want to contribute, because it's really good cause, a really good cause.
And it'll be entertaining too. We will be reading Dead Easy, the second Tales from the Crypt feature film that never was. We'll be doing a slightly abridged version of the script, but it'll be fun to get a taste of the second Tales from the Crypt movie that could have been.
And maybe you guys could decide whether we should have made that one or we should have made Bordello. And listen, be gentle, will you guys?
Really. So we'll see you all on the 17th. We'll see you before then, I hope. Thank you for listening as always, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast. Follow them for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrific crypt content.